Should be it.
I'd like to gavel in our regularly scheduled meeting for March 2nd, 2015. If we'd all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Alderman Harper. Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Robertson.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Tui.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderwoman Manister.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Here.
Thank you. Next item, approval of the agenda for the regular Board of Aldermen meeting for March 2nd, 2015. Any changes? Motion to approve, please.
Motion to approve as submitted, Your Honor, for March 2nd, 2015.
And second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Consideration and approval of the minutes from the regular Board of Aldermen meeting from February 2nd, 2015. Any changes? Motion to approve.
So
So moved. Oh,
We had a
Second.
first and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item, item 5, we have presentations and recognitions. First, I'll turn it over to Chief Fitzgerald.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I have a story to tell. November 20th, last year, about 7 o'clock, a young lady got off work. She works at 1601 Brentwood Boulevard, got off work, went to her car, sat in her car, started checking her phone. Noticed a car pull up next to her, locked her car door, went back to her, working on her phone. She heard a tap at the window. She looked up. She saw a male standing there with a gun in his hand telling her to get out of the car. She got out of the car. He said, leave your purse and your phone in the car. She did exactly what you should do, and she did exactly what he said. He hopped in the car and took off. She called police. Officer Jerry Babbert and Sergeant Jeff Manister responded, took the information, took care of her the best they could. Later on that night, Sergeant Manister investigated. We found some video that targeted, that saw parts of the occurrence, but it saw another car, saw a car that the suspect evidently drove in to get to the location. So we had a vague description of the car. The next morning, our administrative assistant, Jason Ostreicher, did a little nosing around and noticed that a car matching that description had been reported stolen in St. Louis City that night, or that day. He forwarded that information to our detectives, and later that time, Detective Bone, Tim Bone, and Detective Rick Litchke were also notified by the victim that her credit cards had been used at 3 different gas stations. So they did a little legwork, checked some more video on the gas stations. They saw the suspect pull up in her car to get gas and also pull up in the other car that we had seen on the video the day before. So we had video of 2 cars and we had video of some people, but we didn't really know who they were. Through some more detective work, we heard from a St. Louis City detective, Patrick Reardon, who told our department that they had a suspect in some related crimes, some similar type crimes, and they had an idea of who this individual may be. On November 30th, the suspect's vehicle, the one that we saw in the video, was found in North St. Louis unoccupied, and it was confiscated. It was a stolen car also. On December 8th, the victim's vehicle was discovered unoccupied in St. Louis City, and we towed that and checked for prints, didn't really find any that helped us out. On January 10th, St. Louis City arrested the suspect that we had been looking for in St. Louis City. Detective Bone and Detective Litchke interviewed the suspect later that day, and he confessed not only to our crime, but to several other similar crimes that had happened in St. Louis City. We were able to go to St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, who was able to charge him with robbery first degree and armed criminal action, not only for our crime, but for several of the other crimes that happened in the city. This guy wasn't going to stop until somebody caught him. And we were fortunate enough to have some good relationships and good work with St. Louis City, and we were able to get this guy off the street, get the victim's car back, and certainly bring a lot of closure to the whole case by having an arrest. As you could imagine, the victim, I'm sure, is very relieved by the fact that this man is in jail. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to present some of those involved in this with a certificate of excellence, which we in our department every once in a while give to officers who do a little bit more, do a little bit extra, and are able to accomplish something by working together. And there were many aspects of our department that worked together in addition to the officers from St. Louis City to make this work. I'd like to call the officers up. I don't believe Jerry is here. Jerry. Sergeant Jeff Manister. Jason Ostreicher. Detective Tim Bone. Unfortunately, Detective Litchke is basking in the sun on vacation, so he was not able to make it here, but I'd like to congratulate all three of these guys for a job well done.
Great, thank you very much.
Great.
Next item, we have a presentation on update for the community center complex. And
Mr. Keating?
Maybe we'll see this a little bit better. On the screen as well. I'm Chris Keating with Keating Associates, here to update on the progress of the community center renovation. On November 13th of 2015, the roof replacement package was bid for the project. That work is complete, all except for the roof hatch and a ladder that's going to be installed. All the geotech reports, ground penetrating radar, micropile recommendations have been made, and the slab will be replaced in the community center with a micropile structural slab system with micropiles at 9 foot on center. The demolition and rink equipment bid package was released February 20th. It's due to bid tomorrow. The building renovation package will be released for bids tomorrow and is due March 17th for bids. Some images, just three-dimensional images, they're on the boards as well, that show the exterior of the building. And I don't know if that's in that, I think that's the parks package.
yeah, this is a park one, yeah. So,
Real quick, it's probably even best to start with the site.
I'm sorry, Chris, could you stay at the microphone so that they pick it up on the audio or the video? So, sorry.
The site reconfiguration on the site plan there shows that the plaza area has been reconfigured with a large, smooth, ADA accessible ramp to the front door. Pickup has been relocated to the north side of the building, and the handicap spots are directly adjacent to the front of the facility. I think one thing to point out, we'll see in the interior of the building, we've created a patio next to the main entry to the community center portion of the building. So I think going to the floor plan, if I start over in the rink area, All the locker rooms, all the restrooms have been modified to be handicap accessible. The community center function, the administration area, right now is kind of split between the window that you walk in on, Eric's office over on the side. They are now centered in the front of the building. Can you go to the plan? Centered in the front of the building, the light beige kind of peach area there. He's got his finger on it. So that'll be administration. All the community rooms are remaining in the darker red. I think one of the things we'd like to point out is on the community room directly adjacent to the entries, you know, there's an existing warming kitchen, if you will, in the existing facility. But we've taken advantage of this and making this more of a public kitchen, warming kitchen, could possibly be used for some demonstration cooking or something like that in that room. Elevations of the buildings show the new roofing system that's been put on. You've got the patina green roof, ribbed roof, that's complete. The new window system, we're using a similar patina green color to identify the doors to the community center and the ice rink. We've got new signage above the community center doors and the ice rink. These just quickly show some of the design sketches that we've gone through on the community center area, the rink lobby, that kitchen area. The next slide is a computer rendering of the community center, the new community center lobby. As you can see, the desk has been moved over towards the south side of the doors to be able to control the aisleway as well. The next image is of the new rink lobby, showing the rental area, the rink offices in glass, and the proposed bench locations. And that's really all I had kind of as an update.
And Chris, just so people understand, maybe I hadn't had a chance to look at it. So now as you enter the new foyer, the reception desk will be directly to your left, and then straight ahead where the receptionist was, and then offices is now the new ADA compliant bathrooms. You
Yes.
needed to enlarge those. And I think the other big addition is the fact that they'll have the kitchen in the meeting room, which is the furthest one to the north, or the one that, I think that's actually 101. But anyway, the one to the right as you enter the rec center, not only for cooking demonstrations, but for other events they're having there, they'll have access to the kitchen, which will be good for rental and those kinds of things as well. So, Alderman Lay.
Chris, if I can draw your attention to your parking lot layout with the front of the building. We've gone back to putting the handicap parking right there as adjacent to the sidewalk coming off the face of the building.
Correct.
We eliminated 90% of those handicap spots and moved them out into the parking lot because we didn't want the kids coming out of the skating rink and walking out between parked cars to work with. But you've got them back in that area again.
Yeah, the new plaza, I guess first of all, in order to meet all of the grades and the slopes for ADA, they really have to be located directly in front of the building by today's codes, because of even the slightest slope in the driveway has to be calculated. But as you've seen, we've pulled the drop-off and pickup over to the north side of the building. So that's where that'll occur. So any kids coming out with hockey bags and things, once they get to know the new routine, they'll be picked up on that side, as well as there's a side ramp that comes straight out as well that would come out into the main parking lot.
I understand what you're saying. My concern is still having kids, specifically during your winter hours, coming out and walking out between parked cars, getting out to the parking lot itself to where mom, dad parked to come in and watch them and then head back out. We've been very fortunate. I don't believe we have had any reported injuries of anybody since we built the facility. I just didn't want to push the luck
Okay.
to work with. Can we put some better lighting or something at that point, so just to make it more visible
We're
for
relighting
anybody?
the entire plaza as well as the entire parking lot will be new LED light fixtures.
And just to ease some of your concern, I go to the rink every Friday night with my kids, so we're there all the time. But handicap spots are a lot larger. They're not as small, so you're going to have a lot more space walking in between. I'm just to ease a little bit of your concern, so.
Yeah, there's large van access aisles, as you can see.
Use that microphone, sir.
If you can see the yellow between the parking stalls, that's van, what they call van access. It's like a 3-foot wide walking strip. And per ADA, we need to put the handicap parking as close to the building as possible. We can't go an aisle over on this plan.
Maureen, or Alderman Saunders, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Speak into the microphone, please.
The community room that overlooks the ice rink, that's an existing room.
Yes.
There's a kitchen, at the south end of that. Does that kitchen remain there?
At that end, we're doing a sink and cabinets and probably a microwave. But we've moved, anywhere we did the kitchen with today's codes, we would have to have a commercial hood. So once we started getting into that type of equipment, we looked at it as an opportunity to make it more of a design space. So we can do a sink and a microwave kind of down in the smaller galley kitchen. But once we get to a cooktop, it really puts you, in a facility like this, it puts you into more of a commercial code.
Okay, so what was existing in there was like, a refrigerator and the kitchen and that, which was nice if you were using that room for a
Right.
larger gathering. But some of that'll remain, or?
Well, actually, because we'll be removing the entire concrete floor in the community center. So all the walls, all the partitions, everything will be coming out. But we will have a new little galley kitchenette, if you will, there. But the only cooking surface in that will be a microwave oven.
Okay.
For the only cooking appliance.
But you'll keep a refrigerator probably too in there?
I think there's an under-counter refrigerator planned in there as well.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? Looks great. Thanks, Chris.
We might maybe want to turn those around so the public can see.
Yeah, maybe if they could maybe lean them up against the front. And do you need to take those back tonight, Chris, or could we? Yeah, if you just want to maybe lay them up in front, and we'll have them tonight. So that'd be great. Thanks. Okay. Next item is the update on the park master plan, or the synopsis, or.
My name is Andrew Frankie. I'm a planning design studio. With me tonight is Scott Talbert, and tonight we are going to give you a brief overview of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We're going to talk tonight very briefly about the master plan process. Then we're going to give you an overview of the system-wide plan, quickly review the individual park plans, the trail system, and the cost estimates. So with that, we'll go into the process. Next slide, please. The process, we've been working on this plan for about a year. We've completed it, and include 4 major steps, and we've talked about this before. It included data gathering, plan analysis, preliminary plan, and final plan. Throughout the process, we had extensive community input. That included 1 entire day of stakeholder interviews. We had about 6 stakeholder interviews. We also had a chamber lunch presentation and data gathering session out in one of the parks. We had 2 public meetings as well as part of that process. We gathered a significant amount of input during that process, and Scott's going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. Next slide, please. So this plan is really a 15-year look at the future of Brentwood's parks, and Scott's going to start with an overview of the park system.
Okay. So I will highlight some of the major recommendations for each park as identified in the master plan. Go ahead, next slide. But before we address these recommendations, talking about the overall system-wide master plan, in our data gathering and analysis process, we identified that there is a deficit in pocket parks and play lots within the Brentwood Park system, which pocket parks and play lots are parks less than 1 acre in size. And recommendations in the master plan identify that there's a need for 4 pocket parks and 2 play lots. And if you can see from my laser pointer here, these blue circles are the areas identified for the location of these parks. During the public input process, it was also revealed some of the needs and desires for the parks at the system-wide level. Some of these needs and desires identified are a need to bring all the parks up to ADA compliance, expanding parking at each of the parks, general park maintenance, which may include updating park trails and general landscaping improvements. And a community also identified the need for a new major facility, which would be the dog park, to be located somewhere within the Brentwood Park system. Next slide. We'll jump into some of the recommendations for each of the parks, starting at Memorial Park. Some of the major recommendations in the master plan would be the addition of new parking lots. One would be here, where the existing...
Second, Eric, would you point out on the camera so that it'll show up on the video where he's talking about? Thank you.
Where the existing maintenance yard is, which would need to be relocated, and then another new parking lot along Lawn Avenue. Other recommendations would be the renovation of the existing Busy Bee building, which is there, a new all-inclusion playground where the existing playgrounds are, and a new splash pad and improvement to the nature trails. Next slide. Hanley Park. Recommendations in the master plan would be to locate a new combination pavilion and restroom building in the location of the existing restroom building. Add a new skate park, upgrade the existing tennis courts, and add a practice wall into the tennis courts. Next slide, please. Lee Wind Trail, we're shifting orientation here a little bit, just so you know, north is pointing this way. In Lee Wind Trail, the recommendations would be to enhance the trailheads and add a new pedestrian bridge over the creek to connect the 2 sides of the park together. Next slide, please. Oak Tree Park. And here north is pointing this way. Recommendations would be to...
Wait, could you go back to where you said the new bridge over the creek? So are you talking about if that area down in Hanley Industrial Court is then converted into additional park area, right?
Right. It is owned by the city.
It is, right,
Brentwood
okay.
now.
But just so people understand that, right now that's just a vacant lot next to between the parking lots down in Hanley Industrial Court, across from Indico. So, okay, just wanted clarification.
Oak Tree Park, recommendations would be to put in a combination pavilion and restroom building where the location of the existing pavilion is. Add a new accessible parking lot at the corner of Litzinger Avenue here. And to enhance the nature trails area by removing the underbrush and enhancing the trails. Broughton Park, again, north is pointing this way. Recommendations would be to update the existing playground and surfacing and add a new combination pavilion and restroom building in the location of the existing pavilion. Rogers Parkway. Recommendations would be to update the existing playground and surfacing, improve the trailhead, especially the one at Manchester Road, and then add a streetcar monument to the park. Norm-West Park. Norm-West, we would recommend to build a new parking lot in this area, abandon Pendleton Avenue, and add a new pavilion. And then this would be the location for the new dog park in the area where the old apartment buildings have been demolished. Next slide. The dog park, some of the features in the new dog park would be separated areas between a small dog area, a large dog area, and then having a combination area for winter use and agility equipment. Last park would be Brentwood Park. Recommendations for Brentwood Park would be to relocate the existing maintenance building from this location out just outside of the park over here. Reconfigure the parking area, add a new playground, update all the sports fields, renovate the existing restrooms, and add a new restroom building over there. Andy will now go over the trail system and cost.
Thanks, Pat. I'm going to rely on my trusty finger over there to point these trails out. We also did a trail plan to try and link all the parks together in Brentwood. As you know, on the east side of the city, the parks are fairly well linked, but on the west side they're not. So there's a series of paths that or trails that we've designed here. The first trail linkage that we designed is the link from basically Rogers Parkway down to the GRG Deer Creek Trail, which Eric's pointing out. The next one, and that's a pretty important one because that will link the entire community of Brentwood, or a lot of Brentwood, to that larger regional network of trails. The next one is the trail system that's running along Strassner to link up Brentwood Forest into the park system. Thank you. The next one is the major east-west connector, which on the west side of town is along Woodsinger, and then on the east side is Eulalie. And then finally, there's the major north-south trail on the west side of the community on High School Drive and Manderley. These aren't easy slam dunk solutions, but they're what the plan is proposing right now. Next slide, please. The next thing we did was look at a cost estimate for this system. And for the park system, the estimate right now is $13.5 million, and that's in 2014 dollars. That includes all the park work. We did not estimate all the on-street trail system. It did include Lee Wind Trail, but none of the other on-street parking or trail systems, excuse me. Finally, the next thing we did is we tried to devise an implementation plan to organize the projects into one of three categories of projects, and they were based on priority projects, midterm projects, or long-term projects. And this was just one of the lists for those. So that's very quickly a synopsis of what we've been doing for the last year. Do you have any questions?
Any questions of this? Yes. Alderman Kramer.
Andy, on the Pocket Park play lot area, the cost estimates for that, does that include land acquisition?
It did include land acquisition.
And are you contemplating, what are they, like 50 by 137, the average lots over that way? A single lot or a double lot, or?
Typically a single lot is what we had put in the estimate there.
For each the play lot and the Pocket Park?
The Pocket Park, I think,
Play lots are bigger than the Pocket Parks, or they're about the same?
they're a little bit bigger.
Okay.
We were using, no, I stand corrected. The estimates did not include land acquisition.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
We just used a bulk acreage dollar figure to develop the acreage of the land.
Okay.
So for the pocket parks, they were a half acre in size.
Okay,
But that's included in the 4 acres below.
Yeah, but you're not going to get too many lots on the west side of Brentwood for $75,000.
no,
No, you're not. Well, there's some acreage over in York Woods that might become available.
The play lots were
75,000.
1 acre in size.
I'm sorry,
The play lots were 1 acre in
1
size.
acre,
Yeah.
okay,
That's all in the estimate in the back of the report.
all right, thank you.
But they did not include land acquisition. I apologize for the confusion.
Sorry.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
I really like the plan. It's good work, and some surprises that I didn't, well, there's surprises, so I didn't expect them, but as far as the trails go, I'm glad to see the linkage together to create that access for residents. How are you handling crossing Manchester in both locations?
In Manchester, we're also working with GRG right now to explore that linkage in more detail. We've developed 3 options for crossing Manchester at that location near Rogers. One of them is what's called a hawk signal, which is basically a pedestrian actuated signal on Manchester Road. We're also looking at an overpass, like a bridge overpass, and oddly enough, we're also looking at a tunnel. So we're looking at 3 options there. Where we would be crossing on the other side of Manchester Road, kind of in the Manderley area, we haven't really looked in details at what that would be. A hawk might be another option, and it might actually be a better option in that location because Brentwood is flat, Manchester Road is flat in that location.
Right.
We're struggling right now at the Deer Creek area because that's a 5% profile grade, and wheelchairs tip over. You really can't have any more than about 1.5% cross slope, and so that's really, to get that to level out, we'd have to rebuild quite a bit of Manchester Road, and we're not really wanting to do that.
Okay. I also wanted you to talk a little bit about getting down High School Drive in Eulalie with the limited.
That's not going to be easy either. What we were planning on doing was locating a wider sidewalk on the east side of High School Drive, and we'd have to secure that either by easement or acquisition, most likely easement. When you move farther north, it becomes much more difficult because as you get even closer to Brentwood Forest, there's houses literally built almost to the edge of the street. So that's why this is a real long-term proposition, and I think one of the good things about having that in the plan is you can start to say, look, if a property, one of those houses becomes available that's close, that's going to be a possible roadblock, maybe the city ought to just buy it so it can start to secure right away.
It's for sale right now.
Well, there you go.
It really is. Yeah.
It might be worth thinking about. That's kind of why you have something like this. It gives you a little bit of justification because that's really the only way you're going to get through there. So,
Yeah.
What's the total mileage of the trails? If they're all
I don't
connected?
have that off the top of my head. I didn't really add it all up. I'd have to go back and do that, but I can do it, let you know.
Any possibility of thought of connecting with Great River Greenway?
Well, that's
Well,
what he said, right?
We'll do, finger please. Actually, we have to go through, back a couple of maps. We would do that at Rogers Parkway all the way down. We would cross Manchester Road, go down Mary Avenue, and then we have the option of splitting, either going behind the Metro building and around down or to Marshall, that's where the Deer Creek Trail is, or we would go out along kind of parallel to the railroad track, not on the railroad track, and punch out onto Manchester, onto Brentwood Boulevard,
Right.
and then down.
Yeah.
But-
And we're hoping that Great Rivers Greenway would actually pay for those portions of that, and their plan would be the goal, to connect it with Dorothy along the new dog park and in that
Right.
area. Right.
That would be, yeah.
Tie all
And,
that together, right?
There's pluses and minuses to whether you go all the way behind the Metro building or you go out along Brentwood Boulevard. So, but that would be the primary connection. They're in, finger please. If, there's also an option to connect up farther to the east, right there on Hanley, there's, I have the remote, There's an option to connect up down here as well, but that one's kind of involves more of the improvements on Manchester Road and Hanley, which is a whole nother project, and you've got another creek to deal with there too. That's kind of a little bit longer term. Even though this is where we're looking at right around Mary Avenue, that's not really easy either. The railroad is a significant impediment. They do not want an at-grade crossing at all. So to cross that, we're going to have to go over the railroad, and that's very expensive. It's a structure. I think we were talking about between 600 and 700 feet of structure you have to build to get over that thing. And it can be done. It's just expensive. And one of the other things to consider about that is, while GRG may pay to build some of that, the city of Brentwood would be on the hook to maintain that. And that's it's a concrete structure. It's not going to be cheap to maintain in the long term. It's not that they fall down every 10 or 15 years, but you still have to maintain the structure. So,
you mentioned the underground tunnel in Manchester.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of that on Brentwood Boulevard as well?
In what location? Oh, no, we haven't really thought about that much down there. One of the reasons that the tunnel works well where we're proposing it is because property acquisition might allow us to do that. A lot of these solutions may involve property acquisition. We just haven't looked up there in detail yet to make that connection as part of this plan. We just didn't. It wasn't part of the scope of that. Okay. And that'd be pretty tough up there. There's not quite the opportunity. Not to say you couldn't do it, but you'd have to look at it in more detail. We haven't.
Okay.
Not a bad idea, though. Any other questions?
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I take the soapbox for just a moment?
Sure, absolutely.
I wanted to say in my limited time left on the board that I think probably the most important investment the city can make from this point on in the value of its property is exactly what we're looking at here right now with the parks and the trails that we're talking about. And I think we should look very seriously at this as a long-term investment that will pay off for everybody in Brentwood. Thank you.
I agree, absolutely. Next item, we have a continuation of a public hearing for some proposed changes to our Brentwood sign code.
At long last.
So I will gavel in the public hearing.
So, starting back in April of 2014, the city formally started working with our legal counsel for planning and zoning items with the Planning and Zoning Commission on reviewing the city's sign regulations. Following several cases, particularly in the St. Louis area, where cities have been on the unfavorable side of their sign regulations. So following that, the city's gone through, we've done a fairly comprehensive review of the sign regulations with the ultimate goal of providing a content-neutral set of sign regulations, and that is what we have presented for you all this evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review it, and they did recommend approval of the changes that we have to tell you this evening.
Okay. Well, let's open up to the public first. If anybody has any comments with respect to the changes to, proposed changes to the Brentwood sign code, please come forward and give us your name and address. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Alderman Leahy.
If I may, just if I can have a conversation with you. In the current code, we do not allow electronic sign media.
Correct.
Under the new proposed code, you have both animated signs, you have changeable copy signs, and you also have the electronic board sign. But I don't see anything in the code that says they're not allowed to be used, nor do I see anything that says this area specifically does allow it.
Right. And there is a section in the code that basically says if it is not expressly permitted in the sign regulation, it is prohibited. So therefore, because they're defined signs, and that's the way our current code is structured as well. So it continues by default because they're discussed, they're defined, but they're never permitted.
Permitted to be in, okay.
Then they are prohibited.
On page, page 3 of your sign arrangement, you get into the election signs.
Yes.
you allow the election signs 60 days prior to the election and to be removed up to 2 weeks after the election.
Correct.
Currently, we're at a 30-day and removal at the day after the election.
Right.
Why the extension?
And if you would mind, I would like
If-
to bring
love
our
to get-
attorney
love to
in
get-
who's been helping us.
Yep, love
who
to
can
get an
probably speak to
education.
that a little bit better.
Thank you and good evening. There's no magic window about what courts have looked at in terms of what's the perfect election season. I do know that in other communities, not just in Missouri, 60 days before and 2 weeks after is a fairly common window. The issue you have if you require it the day after is it's kind of strict. And the other issue to consider as part of the content neutrality of this new code, in trying to remove the content-based regulations, is theoretically if someone wanted to have a sign that, vote for X for mayor, and it wasn't election season, if they're otherwise allowed a sign, they can have it anyway. So what we're trying to do is, it's getting away from regulating the content of sign and really regulating the numbers of signs. So what you want to do is obviously have a regulation in place that after the election season, when you go back to allowing the fewer signs that are allowed year-round, you've given that kind of reasonable period to take them down. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't be changed to a week. I'm not saying a court wouldn't say the next day is okay. This is a kind of bracket that we've used in other communities and other communities have used. But it's ultimately your decision to decide that. And like I said, I can't come here and say, Smith versus the city of so-and-so said it has to be that number of days. It doesn't. We try to kind of, give what seems to be fairly normal. Another thing I would say is it is important to have an election season. Other communities have kind of run into issues where they just leave it a little open and say, comes down after an election and goes up before because, as I'm sure you're all aware, we have a lot of elections and, we could perpetually be in election season, so you do want to have some kind of bracket in there. But.
So there is nothing that if we wanted to go back and remain stringent and stay at a 30 days prior to the election, that we'd be violating anything?
Not that I'm aware of, unless it's come down really recently. But again, that's because that's not a content-based regulation. You're not saying, okay, signs that say X can be there for this many days, signs that say Y can be there for that many days. The law does look upon those kind of restrictions more favorably because you're regulating the public safety aspect.
To work with.
Yeah, so again, it's something if it pleases the board and you want to change that, I wouldn't have too many concerns.
Justin, if I can come back to you, was this a topic of discussion during the planning and zoning review?
It absolutely was.
And how did they come up with a rationale?
Trying to remember exactly what the discussion was. I know that basically we had looked at several of the communities around us, what they do, what they allow. The point that was made, we actually found that there are several communities that don't define it, and then we found anywhere from 30 to 60, and in that range is kind of what was found in adjoining communities or nearby communities.
Nearby, yeah. But, was there really heartburn with wanting to expand from 30 to 60 days, or was there resistance to that?
There was questioning of it, certainly, of why to extend it. I think in general the commission's feeling was extending it was consistent with the notion of removing the content, particularly allowing the First Amendment right around the election seasons was the rationale.
No other questions, Your Honor?
Sorry, just a further point on that is, one issue you sometimes get, obviously, with having primary elections as well, it kind of, by having that expanded period, you kind of can get around some of those issues as well, because, if you're having, and obviously I know it's not the case in municipal elections, but obviously people, vote in elections where there are primary contests, and it was to try and have a kind of one, unified.
If I'm not mistaken, the state of Missouri's code still for both primary and general election is a 30-day sign.
Okay, I mean, yeah.
To work with.
But yeah, that was one of, I know that's one of the rationales, and I'm not familiar with that.
Alderman Sanders.
actually, the old code, well, I don't know which code we're on, because we adopted, we adopted a code in November, then we're getting another new code, and we have Chapter 19, which is referenced in the public hearing, which is the oldest code. And that one gave us 30 days before and 3 days afterwards. I particularly don't think that we need any more than the 30 days, just because I just think it's just a lot of clutter. And I think a lot of the residents would feel the same, that 30 days is adequate to have that done. And the other thing is a temporary sign is defined as 4 weeks. And so you're kind of, election signs follow suit with being a temporary sign. It says any sign or banner that's only used temporarily, meaning for a period of less than 4 weeks, and is not permanently mounted. So then you're kind of in line with what temporary signs are. And the question I had, though, about the changeable signs and the electronic signs, on page 2, section 410.020, in the middle of the page, if you read in that paragraph, let's see, I guess about the third sentence, any sign not specifically provided for herein as a permitted sign or a prohibited sign shall be designated as a permitted sign or a prohibited sign by the director, consistent with section 410's stated intent and most closely applicable provisions of this chapter. It seems to me that there is discretion here that falls upon the director, not necessarily that these signs are either allowed or prohibited. And I think that needs to be addressed, because the electronic signs, any sign or portion of a sign that displays an electronic image, which may or may not include text, where the rate of change is electronically programmed and can be modified by electronic process. I mean, this pretty much allows most any type of electronic sign, and I know we didn't, or at least the feeling from individuals that have come to my meetings and have emailed me, do not want like the electronic signs that are in
But it's
Manchester
not,
through.
that's what we said, but it's not approved as a permitted sign under our code, even though it's
But it's
defined
not
in there.
prohibited either.
Yes, it is.
Well,
Explain again.
Okay, then will you show me where it's prohibited?
Well, I think the prohibition is in the fact that it's not spelled out and it's not consistent with these sign regulations, therefore it's prohibited.
I don't think it reads. I think that gives you quite a bit of discretion for the director to decide and not necessarily the code.
Well, and that's certainly something we can, we can make sure that it's absolutely clear that if it's not, and as I stand here, I think somewhere in here it is clear, but if it's not, it's easy enough to add, and we, I'd agree that's certainly the intent, as it went through the Planning and Zoning Commission, not to, drastically. And another thing
If that's the case, then under section 410.070, which is what is prohibited, why is it that we can't add electronic signs to that section? And then we don't have to worry.
No, if you go to page 9, section 410.70.
That's what
That's where your
That's what I said.
prohibitations. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I said.
But
Why
that does
don't
not
we-
eliminate any of the
But
electronic.
what I said is, Alderman Leahy, I think I had the floor.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. What I said is, why don't we add electronic signs under that section? Because then we will clearly know that they are prohibited, as with changeable copy.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, I'm like Keith, we're about to the end of our time.
You speak into the microphone.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Can't do me too many more times to do this. But I just want to say, I ran for office 13 times in Brentwood, and I can tell you that adding 30 more days is going to put people like myself putting signs up in February. You probably won't even get them in the ground, first of all. I think 30 days, when I would go around door to door, people would say, they didn't want signs. A lot of people, more than ever, are saying they don't want signs. Well, I'd make a little deal with someone. Well, I'll put it up 3 weeks. Just take 3 weeks. How's that sound? Because you were trying to get to where they would be for it. So I think 30 days is enough. I think the time, I know that I didn't want any more time than I had. I was already given of my time allotted. These guys that are running for office are right now. And I think it just, if you started early, everybody starts earlier. You have to. So if the signs go up in February, you better get your signs, start getting your signs up in February, instead of March. So I would just sort of leave it like it is.
Right. I would, one other comment along those lines before we clarify this, Alderman Saunders. It also would make the campaigns much more expensive. Because I can tell you, just with kids playing around and bad weather and, when you have 250 signs up and you get a windstorm that comes through and rips half of them apart, you got to replace them. So I think 30 days is more than enough. I think it's enough time for the community to see them and recognize them and without being intrusive in the neighborhoods as well. So I would recommend leaving that at 30 days and the 2 or 3 days to take them down. So. But are we clarified on the electronic signs or?
Are we going to, should I make a motion so that we add the electronic signs to section 410.070?
If you think you need to. I think it was stated we didn't need to do it, but that's fine, so.
I would feel more comfortable. I think it's a little bit vague. I need a second, though.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay.
And I would also make a motion to go to the 30 days and 3 days afterwards to remove the signs.
Second that motion.
Yeah, page 3 under election sign.
Yep,
That's where
that's
you're
fine.
making your change.
Okay.
Yes.
And second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then as
Great.
far as changeable copy signs, and it says that the copy can change 8 times. I guess it's changeable copy if it only changes 8 times per day. Or no, let's see, a sign on which the message changes more than 8 times per day shall be considered an animated sign and not a changeable copy. So we're not allowing electronic, so I guess that would just be that somebody's getting out and changing the tiles.
So similar, just like you see at churches or the rec center, where they have the old little boards where you're sliding the letters in and out. That's what that is.
Okay. And then can I ask one more question? Page 15, section 410.125. Okay, no sign shall have blinking, flashing, or fluttering lights or other illuminating device of variable intensity, brightness, or color. So now we've eliminated electronic signs, correct? Okay, because that didn't have, just even, plain graphics like a gallon of milk.
Right.
We would prefer not, okay. And then there, it does talk about clocks and thermometers. And what about gas stations and their fuel price changing?
That's one of the most difficult situations to address under and Justin kind of alluded to, the change in the law that prompted, us to take a look at the content neutrality. And the reason why there's an express exemption for clocks and thermometers is because there's another case, excuse me, there's another case that recognized what's called de minimis uses. So, for instance, I believe that's a Fourth Circuit case, Eighth Circuit, which is the circuit we're in, where someone had challenged a city ordinance that allowed clocks and thermometers, and in that case it was actually on City Hall that had the clock and the thermometer, and the court kind of recognised that you can have these very minor exceptions without being content-based. But once you start getting into things like gas station signs, well, then if you say, okay, a gas station sign can have a sign that advertises prices, and well, now you're looking at content, and the Eighth Circuit has told us if you have to read a sign to determine if it's a sign, or determine if it falls within a sign regulation, then that's content-based. I will tell you this: the Eighth Circuit is in the minority of the federal circuits. Most other circuits say no. Of course, you can have a look at it to determine what it is. But unfortunately, we are in the Eighth Circuit, and the Supreme Court had the chance to address that issue and decided not to. So that's kind of where we are right now. So what we try to do is, and you'll see throughout, you'll see references to suggested signs, and what we were trying to do is get away from the current code. And another thing, the current code is a good code, and it's a relatively new code, but obviously it was done just prior to this change in the law. So there wasn't a huge amount we had to do. It was just a case of trying to neutralise it. It's, my firm, and I apologise, I should have introduced myself, by the way. I'm Ed Slews with Curtis Hines, Garrett Keith. My firm has done a number of sign codes recently, and I would say, this is by far the least amount of work we've had to do in terms of going through and, cutting things out. This is a very long way of saying that what we tried to do was allow for those signs without saying what those signs are. And then, if the gas station wants to say, well, actually, I'd rather advertise the price of cigarettes on there and not the price of gas, that's their decision. But they have the ability to have the signs, and that's kind of why we're trying to avoid it. But we put the thermometers and the clock in there just because that's something that we know that the courts in this district have said is okay. But again, it's,
Well, I
it's up
trust
to
your
you.
legal opinion. I didn't really, it was my husband that asked me about those, not me.
No, I know it seems strange, but
it seemed a good comment, but it wasn't myself.
But again, I viewed my task to look at this from, in an ideal world, what would I like this to see if I was trying to defend this in court, or if Frank was trying to defend this in court? And I know Justin took the view of, well, why we're looking at it, what can we do to make this administratively better? But in terms of the policies. And what it is that you as a city think is appropriate. I mean, that's absolutely 100%, your prerogative and your job. And so things like reducing it to 30 days and making sure certain things are prohibited, I defer 100% to you. And, that's, and actually on that related note, I know they're having some comments about maybe reducing the period after the election season. I didn't know if there was some consensus on that, but I think we did bring that.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a couple more?
Sure.
This would be for Justin, I think, but I'm not sure. Page 17, the comprehensive sign plans. We used to limit those to zoning PD, and now it seems like it's opened where it's approved for proposed or existing development. Is it not just limited to plan development?
That's correct. The idea with it was that in reviewing particularly some of the established areas along, say, Manchester Road or in the Hanley Industrial Court, that we've had periods in time in the past where we've had several variances that have been approved for signs in those areas. And instead of using the Board of Adjustment and the variance procedure to have someone come in and make that argument, essentially what we've done is we've said, why not give P&Z the review and ultimately the board the discretion to review something that may not fit within the box of the typical sign confines, but that may still promote the purpose of the sign ordinance and be in line with the city's regulations. So we took what is in the current code as far as allowing it within the PD zoning district, expanded it out a little bit, and opened it up to the light industrial district and the general commercial district as well.
Okay. My concern with that is just, again, when it was planned development, the idea is you write a sign code so you're consistent, and then here we have a mechanism so that we just can ignore the sign code if we wanted to.
Well,
do you know what I mean? And
I would say it doesn't ignore the sign code. I would, there's flexibility within it, and I would say this is also consistent with where you see a lot of municipalities moving right now, because particularly when you have established commercial areas and you have sign regulations that are trying to regulate an established area in a brand new development and treat them the same, it becomes a very difficult task.
Okay, and it does come before the board for approval?
Yeah, I mean, it would follow the same process as basically a site plan process goes through right now. And the same process that what we call the sign plan would go through as well.
And my last question, and this may be a legal question, but do we have to have billboards?
It's a good question. Okay, and it was an issue I looked at a year or so ago. There's a state statute that says, I think it says you can limit the distances between them to 660 feet. And then it says municipalities can adopt more restrictive regulations. But what I can't recall as I stand here, and I'm certainly more than happy to look into it, is if that's been interpreted to mean, does restrictive mean you can ban them? Or does restrictive mean you can't ban them, but you can say it has to be 3,000 be apart. And Frank, I don't know, off the top of your head.
I don't know off the top of my head, and I believe there was a case probably within the past year to year and a half specifically dealing with billboards in municipalities. And unfortunately, all this billboard litigation seems to be coming out unfavorably to cities.
I think most litigation in general. But,
yeah.
But it's certainly something I can look at. But yeah, that's it's certainly a grey area. And I know I looked at this. It's one of those things I can remember looking at it, but I can't remember what was ultimately decided. But I'd certainly can take a look at that if that's something that. Oh.
We did talk about that during the Planning and Zoning Commission's review of it. Through that process, basically we felt that the ordinance was reasonably restrictive, so that we're not going to have billboards popping up all around town. But it wasn't so restrictive that we thought that we were going to get into legal issues with it.
Well, if we can make it more restrictive and still fall within the law, I would prefer it to be more restrictive. I don't know how my fellow aldermen feel, but I don't want additional billboards in Brentwood or along.
One thing I would say is, this is I think that all of the billboard section is essentially what we have right now.
Is about, right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, with the way, let me tell you.
We don't have a lot of billboards
feet
right
and
now.
Distance, that's not my, so we have the one, at Hanley and Manchester.
That's not in the city of Brentwood.
Okay, all right. And then are there others? Okay, so that's the way I'd like to keep it.
This was a big issue about 3 or 4 years ago at the state level, and there was legislation made that really are the guidelines of what municipalities can do, and I think ours is as restrictive as we can be, and it's just a very powerful lobby at the state level, and I think we've been consistent being as restrictive as we can be, and I think that's what's in the code today. So, yeah.
Well, I think you indicated that there's a possibility that it could be more restrictive.
Well,
yeah, again, it's my recollection as I stand here that the statute says X feet and municipalities can be more restrictive, but I don't want to 100% guarantee that there hasn't been a change since I last looked at the statute, and that's my recollection is accurate, but I do believe we could be some. I think it's a practical matter, and I don't know if Justin can speak to this. Sometimes when you look, when you factor in the restrictions and proximity to residential districts and all that, those kind of things, you might see that by being within the statute, there may be very limited, if any, places you could actually have a billboard within the city. I'm not sure.
Well, Justin, based on this, is there any area that would qualify for a billboard in Brentwood?
Not that I'm aware of. And I did look at it. The Planning and Zoning Commission asked me to look at it, and that was my finding at that time.
Did planning and zoning, I know we have individuals, did they want billboards or not?
No. They had the same position as you're expressing.
Thank you.
The only people who want billboards are billboard companies. Okay. All right. Oh, Alderman Lee.
Settle the issue real simply, the first sentence of the billboard restriction. You have to have a lot with no building on it. What's the cost of a lot along Brentwood or Manchester Road?
Well, if they already own the land, though.
You get with no building. You've got to have a lot with no building. That's the most restricted you can be. So you're paying a fortune for a piece of property so that you could put a billboard up there. And that prevents it from happening.
And it has to be within 660 feet of the interstate, and it has to be light industrial, general, commercial.
So the answer is you've just made it very, very restrictive right off the bat.
Right.
Okay. Alderman Kramer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Justin, regarding the influx that we seem to have on the weekend with temporary signs, sometimes while the cat's away, the mice will play. And I see through 410-060 and 410-070, it looks like we've affirmed or re-specified that. But I wanted to call your particular attention to 410-070 with regards to 5 and 6, the portable signs and the human signs. Are we effectively marginalizing those folks who are holding the banners but not in a costume with number 5?
I believe the intention is that, yes, both of those would fall under this if they're doing it if they're advertising for a commercial business either within or near the city. And that was the intention of that, was to specifically address that instance that had come up, or instances that come up in the city,
Okay,
particularly on the weekends.
so then if we skip to 410-170, which is the enforcement provision, so on the weekend, as you may recall, and Bola as well, we sometimes have difficulty with enforcement on the weekend because staff's away. So what is our recourse without staff to enforce such a provision on the weekend?
Well, quite honestly, it becomes difficult.
Yeah, we have called the police department to come out. When I get the call or the text, I contact the chief, and an officer is asked for those individuals to go speak to those individuals to remove themselves from that location, primarily because of safety issues.
That's my question, since the word police is technically not in the enforcement provision of this bill. Does that need to be added as a secondary enforcement?
I mean, the police in the city, and Frank, if you disagree, certainly feel free to join in. I mean, the police is part of their charge is to uphold the city's ordinances, and this is a city ordinance. I don't think they need to have express within each ordinance. This is a code requirement in theory. For instance, I don't. The general penalty provision applies whenever there's no other penalty, and the police can cite people for ordinance violations. As a practical matter, I assume you probably don't want people being arrested or whatever for these kind of things, but they inherently have that power to enforce the city's ordinance, like with state laws and federal laws.
The reason why I ask is that the enforcement provision in the past has been kind of questioned by some of the law enforcement in terms of it's specific for the protocol for the staff to follow, but in terms of the officer on the street who says, what am I to do with this gentleman, or the manager, or am I to confiscate the sign myself?
And I can speak to that. I mean, essentially, they're going to operate as an extension of the Planning and Development Department. So they're not going to go arrest them for doing this. They're going to inform them of the ordinance requirements, and the hope is that they comply. Just like if someone has a temporary sign that's on their property that's mounted on there, we go tell them, we ask them to take it out. We hope they comply. If they don't, we document. So if a police officer went out and asked them to leave and they refuse to leave, essentially what he would do is help us out, hopefully, with documenting the occurrence, the advertising that was taking place, and that we would go through the enforcement process from there and go through the typical process with it, as we would with any other temporary sign.
Okay.
One other thing I'd say, certainly it's something you could, if you want to, work with the chief, whatever, to establish criteria, or, it's something you could put in the code, or you could do it through a general order, and, that's probably, I'd probably recommend a general order just to have, if you want to have that level of certainty.
Thank you.
Alderman Sanders.
I hate to ask, but one more thing as far as, what is the legal definition of a lot as far as the billboard?
A lot of record, as defined by St. Louis County, an individual
so it has
parcel.
to be an individual parcel.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one other thing on page 19, just to be certain, all billboard signs shall be exempt from the setback requirements of the zoning district. Do we have to have it like that? Is that state statute? Page 19 at the very last page, Roman numeral 4.
I must confess, I'm not sure. That's part of the existing language. Again, it's something we can take a look at and see if you could get rid of that. The theory would be, because obviously billboards, although they can be pretty tall, are smaller than the buildings, so to try and get around the setback issues. But I don't know, as I stand here, whether state law says we have to say that.
Okay. Well, it's just, I guess I'd make a motion that we just remove that.
Well, we need to verify whether it complies with the
No,
state
not to be
statute.
exempt. We want them to have to do
Yes, you do. You do want section 4 as written. You're exempting it from your setbacks, which could be as small as 5 feet from property lines, and you're establishing that it has to be at least 30 feet. So the exemption is you can't do your sign in the building setbacks. You must do it for a 30-foot setback, and that's what you want. Push it back as far as you can. in the lot.
Right.
So if you change that, you're going to allow them to bring the sign closer to the street.
No, I was thinking it has to meet both, because one talks about right-of-way and one talks about setback. So if they go further away, but then if they come to the rear setback, it can prohibit a sign. Am I correct?
I lost you a little bit, I'm sorry.
Well,
I think the point is, what this is saying, so when you go to the general commercial district, for instance, its setback may be 25 feet from the right-of-way. And what this section says is, regardless of what that says, it's 30 feet.
right. I agree with that, okay. But then you know how on a lot, there's also a rear setback? So let's say,
Well, again, commercial. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
is there a setback for commercial too?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's say, at 30 feet, then the rear setback, they don't meet that requirement, therefore they still can't put the billboard in.
But that's what this is saying.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
with billboards, the biggest kind of practical issue you have is you don't want it right on the street because you can have people driving past, crashing. And bear in mind as well that you can't have a billboard within a X feet of a residential district. So because I imagine your concern to be, you've got this huge billboard right at the back of a property, and now someone's backyard is, has no sun. That wouldn't happen with the totality of the regulations, but what it does is you get the, and Mr. Alderman, I believe you're correct, and Justin can obviously better speak to the general setbacks in effect, but there aren't going to be, I imagine they're generally, the front yard setback is going to be smaller than 30 feet, so it is an extension on that. And but you're going to have those other protections in place to stop. It's not going to be someone's residence. Presumably, you'll be in an industrial. If you think of the nature of the streets that are within that distance of the highway, it's all commercial or industrial, I believe. Commercial, anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item, item 7, bids.
Thank you, Mayor.
I close the public hearing.
The city went out to bid for uniform services. We received quotes from Syntask and Aramac. Total cost, weekly cost, and is $51.52 for Syntax. Yearly cost was $26.79 for Aramac. It was $54.50. Total yearly cost is $28.34. In negotiating with Aramac, they agreed to waive the first month's charges, a savings of $218. Also, they offered to waive the $10,641.80 that the city would have had to pay for the uniform buyout. This was presented to Public Works Committee, and the recommendation is that the best bid is Aramac.
Okay. All right. Next item, hearing of any matters of public interest upon any persons present. If anybody'd like to address the Board of Aldermen, please come forward and give us your name and address.
Denise Sebbing, and I live at 2612 Porter. And first of all, I do have a couple of updates since the last time I was up here at the last Board of Aldermanic meeting, and that is first the curbing at the Fly Fish business was finally moved from the sidewalk and away from the bus stop, so that was very good. I appreciate that. It took 2 months to get that chunk of concrete moved, but it is moved. And Bola, I want to thank you for working to get the Route 66 signs along Manchester up. I think it's a small little improvement, but it's something that's easy enough, and it does at least mark that our Manchester road is part of that route. I am coming back tonight to talk about several other unresolved issues tonight. We heard presentations about what the city's looking at doing for the forest, or for the parks and recreation. I think those are fabulous investments in our city, and I want to applaud the work that went into that. Those are long-term fixes. Things that I want to talk about are short-term fixes that we need to do sooner than later. And one of them, I've been working with Bola and several people from the city, is that we have a contractor came into Brentwood putting asphalt and tar a parking lot, and in the process drove down our cement street on our neighborhood and dropped tar all along the street. It goes the whole length of the street. So we have these streaks of tar down our street now. We've asked the city to do something about that. I mean, as residents, we would be responsible. If we spilt that, we would have to clean that up. And at this point, our Public Works is sharing with BOLA that we may have to, the best they can suggest is we may just have to live with that and let nature take its course. It's been 4 months and it's not fading. So I know, BOLA, you said there's other alternatives that they're looking into, but I would encourage you to try to address that. As residents, we shouldn't have to be forced to live with the mistakes and the sloppiness of contractors coming into our city, running our streets, when we try to keep our streets clean and take care of them. Secondly, I've shared for several months the boards at the corner of Manchester and Hanley are looking terrible, shabby. You know, it's interesting because one of the boards actually has the Welcome to Brentwood, and it's our Brentwood logo, and I don't know where they got that, so somebody from the city must have approved that signage. And we've talked a lot about signage and everything, and it really makes, you know, Welcome to Brentwood and its shabby sign, and those boards, I found out, have been up for over 8 years. It's a construction boarding with chain link fence across the driveways. And Andy, I know you've told us at one point that the boarding was put up to keep people out, but that concrete is breaking up. You can see it. People can get in. Over the years, we've had at least 3 in the last year, 3 situations where people have gone in and put graffiti along the back walls. And the city has fixed that, but obviously it's not keeping people out. As residents, I wouldn't be able to put up a contracting fence on any part of my property for 8 years, and I think it's ridiculous that it's been there for 8 years, and heaven only knows how much longer it's going to be there. I would think that this board should be able to do something to try to improve that corner, and that's something, you know, maybe put up a nice fence, a nice wooden fence, or get that area cleared out. Next, we've had issues with trash trucks. Over the last 10 years, residents have come to Board of Aldermanic meetings and Ward 3 meetings. Chief Fitzgerald, over the last month or so, has actually asked his officers to stop the trucks that are coming through the city before 7 a.m. picking up trash. And in a 2-week period, a month ago, they had at least 7 haulers that were stopped. The second week, some of them were repeat haulers, and yet for the last 2 weeks, they were issued warnings, verbal warnings, but nothing in writing. And I applaud the effort that you did, Chief Fitzgerald. I appreciate that, you know, you're putting the effort into that. But for the last 2 weeks, they're still coming to the businesses behind our homes on Manchester and Hanley, the corner of Manchester and Hanley. You know, at 5:30 in the morning last Friday, they were picking up trash. Before that, it was 6 in the morning. So I'm asking, you know, when do the ordinance start getting enforced with citations? You know, I've been asking kind of since February 5th, when do we start putting, you know, putting these folks on the for money? You know, when are we going to start citing them? I know our officers can't ask that, you know, they, you know, have to pay penalties, but we at least need to start citing them so they stop breaking our ordinances. If they weren't worth putting on the books, why aren't they worth enforcing? Next, we have the barking dogs still at the watering bowl. I know I keep bringing this issue back and forth. I know Chief Fitzgerald was kind enough to go down and has confirmed that they put signs up that say that, you know, barking dogs are going to be brought in. I know for a fact they aren't. Yesterday, I was trying to, you know, videotape my dogs in our backyard playing in the snow, and for over an hour, those dogs were out there barking. And I would have thought they would have been in. It's awful cold, but they weren't. You know, we can call the police, but, you know, the police, by the time they get there, the dogs, then they'll bring them in right away. And, you know, there's an ordinance. I wouldn't be allowed to keep my dog outside barking for an hour and not have to worry about being cited. I don't think I should have to be coming up here making these complaints on a regular basis. I come up over and over again, and, you know, some of these things have been going on for years. Some of them have been going on for months. And I feel like we've elected aldermen to do this. And Andy and Keith, you're Ward 3 aldermen, and we would expect that you'd be championing these things, and you haven't. I know we have an election coming up, and I know we have some candidates who are wanting to support some of these issues, but I would hope the rest of the board that's going to continue to be here would take these things to heart. These are things that impact us residents, especially in the area I live. As the other lady indicated, we feel like our area is one of the most rundown areas as far as infrastructure. And these are small things that maybe don't mean a lot to you all sitting here, but for those of us that look at it day in and day out, it does. And finally, Andy, I have one other question. This is the 4th aldermanic meeting I've asked why you do not allow residents to email you to the city email address. You know, if we try to email you, it immediately bounces us to your work. And I would just like the courtesy of an answer, whether from you or if you can't address that from the mayor in your place, as to why we can't just email you at the city email address and expect an answer instead of having to be bounced around through a company website. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to introduction and reading passage of bills. If I could have a motion for the first and second readings of bills number 5952, 5953, 5954, 5955, 5956, and 5957 and 58.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to take 5953 and ask it to be postponed for 2 weeks. That's the entire packet of the new code coming back to us. I have not had a chance to get through that entire section.
53.
5953.
Community code update.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Does it hurt? Is there a time sensitivity that we should deal with?
No, it can wait.
Okay. Well,
Make a motion. But I should say that the code that you received in December and this code, there should be no difference between the two documents. The only difference that is being brought to you tonight is the fact that in the code that you received in December, it had the 2014 statutory updates. But when it was adopted, the language in the ordinance did not reference that. So that's the only update that we're making tonight. But when you do this, you have to re-adopt the entire code. So if you're looking at the document you got in December and looking at the one we gave you just this past weekend, you should see no change, no difference in either one of those two documents.
I understand what you're telling me, but I have not gone through the packet, because there's 1,800 pages.
Go ahead and make
so
your
I'd
motion.
like to make a motion to move 5953 until 2 weeks from tonight, is the 20th of March.
I'll second that.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, again, can I have a motion for the first and second readings of bills number 5952, 54, 55, 56, 57, and 5958?
So moved, Your Honor.
And second?
Second.
First and second readings only. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. First reading of bill number 5952.
First reading Bill number 5952 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute the attached 2015 Development Supplemental Cooperation Agreement, Community Development Supplemental Cooperation Agreement.
Okay. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill number 5952, the Municipal Housing and Community Development CDBG Supplemental Cooperation Agreement. The bill allows for execution of the 2015 Community Development Block Grant Municipal Housing and Community Development Supplemental Cooperation Agreement between the City of Brentwood and St. Louis County. This program allows for the income-eligible homeowners to receive forgivable loans up to a maximum of $5,000. These funds are generally used for roofing, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical work.
Okay. Alderman Lee.
On the last page in Exhibit A, we're applying for $20,000 for this grant. Is that number solid, or can that number be requested for larger?
It's what's allocated to our community based on our income of our residents in the areas that they can apply it to. So.
Okay, because last year when we dealt with the community grants, it was made known that we had others that were still sitting and waiting on a waiting list.
We had a waiting list, but
Right.
we're
Yeah.
allocated $20,000 each year.
And that's the best we can apply for?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Saunders.
And I just want to make sure it's in there, but that will still, related to these projects, will also waive the permit fees and
Right,
such.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill number 5952 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute the attached 2015 Community Development Supplemental Cooperation Agreement.
Motion, please.
So moved. Or
And
I
second?
move that we perfect Bill 5952 into ordinance.
Second.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Saunders, second by Alderman Tui. Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Bill number 5952 is now ordinance number 4608.
First reading, Bill number 5954.
First reading, Bill number 5954 by title only, an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 410 of the City of Brentwood Municipal Code pertaining to the regulation of signs, providing for the current maintenance of this code, providing for the effective date of this ordinance, and providing for the repeal of all conflicting ordinances.
Okay. This is for the sign code changes. I don't think we need the synopsis. We
Okay.
know what the,
So
Alderman
this will
Saunders.
be as amended, since we made
As
the two
amended,
motions?
yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
motion would be.
And I'm willing to support this, but I still would like us to look into if the billboard could be more reflective, if any aldermen, restrictive, I mean, if aldermen are.
Second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill number 5954 by title only, an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 410 of the City of Brentwood Municipal Code pertaining to the regulation of signs, providing for the current maintenance of this code, providing for the effective date of this ordinance, and providing for the repeal of all conflicting ordinances.
Okay. So if I have a motion to perfect the bill as amended, please.
So moved.
In second.
Second, Your Honor.
And roll call.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Bill number 5954 is now ordinance number 4609.
First reading, Bill number 5955.
First reading, Bill number 5955 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a service agreement with Airmark Uniform Services and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Synopsis.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill 5955, Uniform Services for the City of Brentwood's Public Works Department, which currently leases work uniforms for the Public Works staff from Aramark. The current lease agreement is expired and now on a month-to-month basis is being utilized until a new contract is contemplated and completed. Public Works Committee has reviewed the new agreement proposal and recommends this be presented to the Board of Aldermen with the positive recommendation.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman Leahy.
I got a couple questions, if I can, I guess, to you, Bola, if I may. Terms and conditions, if I'm not mistaken, these are the same terms and conditions we signed up the last time for?
This is for 60 months.
Yeah. Well, in this one, they give a 5% increase as allowable based on
Right.
what they would like. Is that negotiable with them?
There is an addendum that has been attached to the agreement. They will provide the city with the notice about the increase, and we have the option either to accept or decline.
To work with. Secondly, the requirement, that this is supposedly on the addendum, this is a 3-year contract with 2 one-year.
2 one-year options.
Extensions.
Right.
That doesn't put us outside the limit of binding the board?
It's based on allocation by the board during each budget cycle. So
Okay,
it would be based upon approval of the budget.
All right. And then on this, the easy care and replacement of uniforms to work with. Since this is clothing, I don't understand how they get into the point that we owe them $10,000 or would have owed them $10,000.
The Easy Care is new. That was not present in the prior agreement.
So this, by taking on Easy Care, we will eliminate that
Exactly.
liability in the future?
Right.
This would not be easier for us to lease the uniforms and let the employees manage and take care of
The
themselves?
upfront cost would be much more expensive.
To work with. Thank you.
Alderman Saunders.
I just want to clarify, that we were under contract before,
Right.
and there was that we had to pay replacement costs, but by renewing with them, we were going to get out of that.
They were going to waive that.
They were going to waive that.
Right.
Is that been done?
once this is executed, then it will be done.
Okay, I didn't know that, I didn't see the nitty-gritty of there, so I didn't know if it was mentioned in here or if that's separate.
I don't remember if it's specifically mentioned in here, but that's what we negotiated in our conversation
Okay,
with
so
them.
we're certain they will waive.
They will waive it.
Okay,
If not, we will not execute the agreement.
okay, great, thank you, Paul.
Second reading?
Second reading, Bill number 5955 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a service agreement with Aramark Uniform Services and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. Motion, please.
I move that we perfect Bill 5955 into ordinance form.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call?
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robinson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Manister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5955 is now ordinance number 4610.
Thank you. First reading, bill number 5956.
First reading, Bill number 5956 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri for holding services to be provided to the city of Rock Hill by the city of Brentwood, Missouri.
Okay, synopsis?
Your Honor, Bill 5956 covers the holding services agreement with the City of Rock Hill, Missouri. With the passage of the agreement, City of Brentwood agrees to provide prisoner housing in Brentwood's holding facility for the City of Rock Hill at a cost of $7 per day. That fee includes microwavable meals and clothing if needed. The fee does not include any medical fit for confinement charges. Our city's Public Safety Committee has reviewed and recommended approval of Bill number 5956.
Alderman Leahy?
I'd like to question this agreement. We're dropping from the $14 a day charge to a $7 between food and what we're paying ECDC to help do the monitoring of what's going on. I'm not sure how we get to $7 being a reasonable fee. So if anybody can educate.
We were trying to come in a little bit in line with what ECDC is charging at their holdover, which is what Rock Hill has been paying for the last several months. They charge even less than the 7. We were charging 14, which is ridiculous. So I tried to find a compromise. $7 is still way more than what we actually spend per prisoner each day.
What is our current charge for ECDC to do the video monitoring if we have
There's no
prisoners?
separate cost. It's part of that
Right.
entire agreement.
We have that anyway, regardless.
It's just what they
Well, we've just spent a fortune putting that feature in.
But we have it regardless of whether Rock Hill's in there or not.
Understand, I'm looking at, there is a cost for providing
There
this
is no
service.
separate breakout cost. That was negotiated in the
Whether
agreement.
Rock Hill enters into this agreement and pays us $7 a day for their prisoners or not, we're still going to pay that fee to ECDC. So if anything, it would offset that.
Also, were we reimbursed by the FCC for the monitoring equipment at
Yes,
all?
we were, 100%.
So, okay, thanks, Chief. Second reading?
Second reading, Bill number 5956 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri for holding services to be provided to the city of Rock Hill by the city of Brentwood, Missouri.
Okay. Motion, please.
So move.
And second?
Second.
We had a first and a second. Roll call?
Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah.
Alderman Robinson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
No.
Alderwoman Manister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5956 is now ordinance number 4611.
Okay. First reading, bill number 5957.
First reading, Bill number 5957 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator of the city of Brentwood, Missouri to enter into and execute an agreement with Gilmore and Bell and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill number 5957 covers the letter of engagement relating to the bond council for the Hanley Station redevelopment project, tax increment refunding revenue bonds, Series 2015, approximately $6,150,000. The bill authorizes an agreement with Gilmore and Bell as bond counsel for the Hanley Station redevelopment project, tax increment refunding revenue bonds, Series 2015, once again, approximately $6,150,000. In conclusion with that, Gilmore and Bell, as bond counsel, could render opinions on the validity of the bond offering, the security for the offering, and whether and to what extent interest on the bonds are exempt from income and other taxation. The opinion of bond counsel provides assurance both to issuers and to investors who purchase the bonds that all legal and tax requirements relevant to the matters covered by the opinion are met. This is Bill number 5957.
Okay. Just as a little bit of background, the existing bonds with the reduction in the current low interest rates, periodically we look at these bond issues to see if the city can save interest and time in reissuing the bonds at a lower interest rate. Again, because of the current economic conditions and the current interest rates, an evaluation will be done. Stiefel Nicholas is the next ordinance, which would be our financial advisors to run the numbers to see what the savings would be. Mark Grimm and both Jim Leahy are here this evening if anybody has any questions. But normally we would have them, in the past we would just run the numbers, and if it was advantageous to the city, we would move forward at that point. But because of changes in the state statutes a couple of years ago, neither our bond counsel nor our financial advisors can do that work without having a new separate agreement in order to do that. So that's why we have to have these agreements here tonight. Alderman Leahy.
On the fees on the last page, we're looking at about $75,000 if this thing goes fully through to full renegotiating and releasing new bonds. Because of that $75,000 fee, are we under an obligation to go out for competitive bid or services of this, or is this an exception?
No, well, these are professional services, but again, we wouldn't proceed unless a financial analysis came back and said that we were saving not only $75,000 but also some additional funds. There wouldn't be any reason to move forward with that. So. Yeah. So
also, if we had gone out to bid, in your packet this past weekend, information was provided to you about the firm, Gilmore and Bell, and it seems, based on the information that I shared with the board, that this firm has been bond counsel on more transactions than any other law firm in the country. In 2014 alone, they served as bond counsel on more than 420 long-term transactions. So our recommendation would be to go with them if we had gone out to bid. But as the mayor said, this is professional services. So the
just want to make sure we're covering our bases.
Right.
Yeah. Alderman Saunders.
This is done before me, but the original bond was the $8,785,000, and so now the principal left remaining is the $6,150,000. Is that correct?
I would think, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so the current interest rate's 5.5%?
Correct.
Okay, so we did pay some of that down.
Right.
That is the difference there. Okay, and it's the revenues, top half of this project that pays off those bonds?
Actually, the this is the Hanley Station project, so I believe we're contributing everything to this development to pay these bonds down sooner.
No, why is this Hanley Station, it's not part of the Meridian?
No, this is
Hanley
separate.
Station. So this is Houlihan's
Camille's.
MLP project, right?
Okay, but when you say we're contributing everything?
When we did the initial financing of the project, the city agreed to contribute all of our, not only the bottom half, well, our bottom half of the sales tax to the project to help it pay it down sooner.
Oh, we did? Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Okay. But it's just all the revenue from that project?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
and then is there a TDD component to the Hanley Station?
They do have a TDD for that as well.
And is that part of the one that they were merged?
No,
we didn't
that's a
combine them
separate.
with the Hanley Road corridor. No,
Okay, so can I ask what the TDD is with regards to this project?
What do you mean, what it is?
Well, I mean, what did that pay for, just?
Well,
It's
actually,
usually-
the TDD funded, they paid for the roadway from Hanley Road into Hanley Industrial Court, which is about $1.2 million, I believe.
That wasn't the Strassner TDD?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
It's followed the Strassner.
Well, but it wasn't the Strassner TDD. The Hanley, the MLP project TDD paid for the road the new road that goes from Hanley Road into the first intersection in Hanley Industrial Report.
Okay, into the first,
Didn't
okay.
they also pick up the bridge, the Metrolink bridge?
No, that's under the Hanley Corridor
Corridor
TDD.
Road?
That was the Strasser Road Transportation Development District.
Okay, I just wasn't as familiar with this one.
All right, second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill number 5957 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator of the city of Brentwood, Missouri to enter into and execute an agreement with Gilmore and Bell and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, any questions? Motion, please.
Motion to perfect Bill 5957 into ordinance form.
Thank you. And
I
a
just
second?
have One more question.
Well, we need a second
Oh, okay.
first. Alderman Kramer had a second. Alderwoman Saunders?
So from the onset, when we first issued the first bonds, we agreed to all the proceeds, or was this during another refinance?
No, it was the initial redevelopment agreement with that
Okay.
project.
Start.
Okay. We had a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robinson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5957 is now ordinance number 4612.
Thank you. First reading of bill number 5958.
First reading, Bill number 5958 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator of the city of Brentwood, Missouri to enter into and execute an agreement with Stiefel Nicholas and Company, Inc., and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. As referred to just a few moments ago, Bill number 5958, which is a letter of engagement relating to an underwriter engagement relating to a potential municipal securities transaction in regards to tax increment financing, TIF refunding, that for the Hanley Station redevelopment project through Stiefel Nicholas. There's an opportunity for the city to retire TIF bonds issued in February 2008, 3 years earlier than originally projected. The TIF ends on September 14th, 2026. With the refunding, assuming no growth in the current trailing months of receipts, believe it now be fully able to retire the bonds in November 2023. Second, with interest rates dipping nationwide, the city would be saving taxpayer money, not be able to put that money back into the city funds for other projects and programming. The bill authorizes the mayor and the city administrator to engage in discussions related to potential public financing in connection with the Hanley Station redevelopment project. Bill number 5958.
Okay. Alderman Leahy.
I have to ask on paragraph 2 of the background, how do we know if they're not disclosing information that are operating in our best interest? Since they're no longer required to operate that way, how do I know when they're doing it or not?
What do you, I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
In the paragraph, if we engage under the new rules, G17, the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, effective August 2nd, 2012, now requires that the underwriters must now disclose that they have no responsibility to serve in the best interest of the municipalities. So I got to ask, if I'm hiring them to help us make this work, how do I know if they're doing it in my best interest or not to work with?
Jim or Mark, do you want to tackle that one?
Good evening, Jim Leahy, Stiefel Nicholas. That wording is required wording in the municipal advisor rule. We're bound to disclose that exact wording. So, but everything we do is in the best interest of the clients we work with. So, it's all I can say. I mean, there's no middle ground here. We do our best job all the time for our clients, and if anybody feels like we're not, they don't work with us. So,
Jim, I fully understand what you're telling me, but the dilemma is
I understand.
The declaration gives you the out that says, I'm supposed to rely on your expertise,
right?
But it may not be in my best interest to do so. And you're into an area that I honestly don't know how the numbers crunch out as well as you do, so I am going to rely on you.
This is a refunding, so that language would typically refer to a new money issue if you were going to issue more, and maybe it could require us or somebody encourage you to have a larger bond issue than what you need. In this case, the bond issue that you're going to do is to refund the existing bonds, not a penny more, not a penny less, because you have to pay the bondholders through the call date. By the way, the call date is May 1st of this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Sanders.
Andy, if it helps, I mean, it's just a professional relationship, just like with your own broker and that. I mean, they tend to do, want to do what's best for you. Otherwise, we won't use you next time.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill number 5958 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator of the city of Brentwood, Missouri to enter into and execute an agreement with Stiefel Nicklaus and Company, Inc., and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Motion, please.
So moved.
I'm
Second.
second. You first.
Thank you. We had a first and second. Roll call.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robinson.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderman Bannister.
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Bill number 5958 is now ordinance number 4613.
Thank you. Resolution 1028, a resolution of the City of Brentwood, Missouri to approve a Candy Melt 5K family run and coordinated by the Brentwood Parks Department. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Similar terms, resolution number 1028, the new Parks Program, Candy Melt 5K and the Fun Run. It's a resolution adopting a brand-new Parks and Recreation Department event for 2015. The Public Works Committee has reviewed and recommended this be presented to the Board of Aldermen. The Candy Melt 5K and Family Fun Run is an event aimed at bringing together members of our community. However, the event concentrates more heavily on the importance and benefits of health and wellness as an individual as well as a city. For a first-year event, the department would expect 50 to 100 participants.
And the Candy Melt will be held, is it the weekend of Halloween or after?
Weekend following.
Oh, right, the weekend following. So you have a little bit of time to eat the candy and then run. So, Alderman Leahy.
We've got an entry fee of about $20. Is that normal? I've never participated.
I can tell you that races around here, $20 is very reasonable.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, I think the St. Louis Half Marathon is up to over $100 now.
Per participant?
Yeah.
Depends when you sign up.
Yeah, but it's. I'm always late, so it's.
Are you participating?
And I won't be doing it this year anyway. So, all right. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution 1028, please?
So moved.
In second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Accounts against the city?
Yes, Your Honor, all the aldermen should have before them a warrant list dated today in the amount of $397,034.02. I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrant list as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Your Honor.
Any questions? Alderman Leahy.
Second page, Union Pacific Railroad. We have a $2,202.80 fee. That's our yearly fee for them, for the parking spaces down along Russell Avenue.
Yes.
Has our other problem gone away?
We're not mentioning it.
We haven't
Neither are
heard
they.
from them, so.
But thanks for playing.
Second question, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
On the Rico USA printer arrangement, we had a misreading reader for the copying copies, and now we're correcting and catching up to where we are. If the reader's misreading, how do we know that we're corrected it and got where we're supposed to be now? Is this just estimates from past monthly arrangements that we're reaching some type of settlement with to close this one out?
Gina will address that.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
I've been on the phone with Rico about it's the big copier in the back. I've been on the phone with him actually just last Friday talking about this issue. They did 2 estimated reads and then got the meter reads. It's an automated system. They got it up and running, and so once they actually did a real read, of course, they had underestimated. So, but we have since gotten another bill, and it's perfectly normal this month. So this is actually last month's bill.
we're content with settling the accounts and closing this one out.
Yes, and if you take the two estimated reads and this large read and divide by 3, it's a normal,
We're back to
normal
back on
monthly
target.
amount, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, we had a first and second to approve the warrant list as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, report of committee and department heads under the mayor's report. Got a few things. Week before last, St. Louis County Highway Department and their representatives were nice enough to come to my house and give me an update on Brentwood Boulevard. So I'm going to forward that information. The project is actually out to bid again right now. We'll be back, and I'm not sure, or did it come back? Yeah, March 1st. It was this week. So, and then construction on the project should start by the 1st of May. The contractor will have till the end of October to complete the project. They will be replacing all of the crumbling concrete curbs along the corridor. They will be replacing every one of the ramps at the intersections, the ADA, to bring them up to current ADA requirements. And so that work will start in May. Asphalt work probably won't start until mid-September. The process there will be they're going to mill off either 3 or 3.5 inches of the top surface, put a heavy-duty 1-inch micro surface underneath, and then a 2-inch overlay on top of that. They don't anticipate having any major lane closures during the actual asphalt. A lot of that work will be done at night. And as soon as they mill it, put the new, even the base surface on, that can be drived on until they come in and do the overlay. So they will do, the entire roadway milling and micro surface, our initial surface, and then come back and do the overlay on top of that. Alderman Lade?
Will they be picking up from the 64 highway all the way to
It'll be
the
from
Marshall Bridge?
Eager Road to Marshall Road.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Super.
So, and so it'll be a summer-long project while they're working on the curbs. Obviously, there'll probably be more disruption when they're doing some of the curb work than when they're doing the actual asphalt. So, okay.
And Eager Road too, as well. Eager Road from 170 up to Hanley is supposed to be part of the project as well.
Not part of this project.
I don't think
No.
so.
No.
Guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Maybe that's one of the things that they cut out, because they had actually put this out to bid earlier in the year, actually late last year, and pulled it back because the costs were coming in over what they were anticipating. So what they told me, this project was from Eagle Road to Marshall Road, and that was it. So. Okay. Another one, Bo and I debated about this. With the command staff with the fire department, we're not going to discuss that tonight. Chief Drury was traveling out on vacation, and his flights the last day and a half have been delayed, and were canceled again this morning. He got out this afternoon, so he's not going to be back in town until later this evening. So we would like to have him here to discuss that. The next item, I really don't think this is necessary, but BOLA just wanted to be safe. But in our handbook, it says that if we have a reduction in staff, that the city administrator has the ability to do that, but she wants to notify the board. And she was, again, this is with respect to the park staff that won't be able to be working while the rec center is being closed. I don't really consider that to be a reduction in staff. It's just that we won't have the work for what are mostly part-time people during that construction phase. Those people will be re-interviewed and for the jobs once the rec center opens back up. So it's not really a reduction in staff, it's just because of the construction project. So I think the handbook was really focusing on if we were eliminating positions within the city, not these types of situations like that. So just so you're aware of that. And also, the rec center will be closed for the next election. So the residents of Ward 3 will be voting actually at the church at the corner of McKnight and Litzinger, actually in Rock Hill. And that's where the election board elected to have it. They will be sending out postcards to all of the residents of Ward 3. We will be sending out an additional postcard and putting that on the website and so forth. Probably put something in the Pulse too if we haven't already done that. So, Alderman Leahy.
If I may, you're using basically 1,000 postcards is what your estimates. There are only 640 actual registered addresses. You may have multiple voters within an address, but for 640 postcards, you could accomplish covering all of Ward 3, and that would reduce your quoting and costs and everything to work with. So instead of running for a full 1,000,
I think they're going to be. I think they want us to send it to each registered voter, though. Right. Yeah. Even if they are at the same address.
We'll follow the procedure that's recommended by the election board.
Right. So.
There's no way to delay the closing of the rec by 1 week?
Well, originally that was our plan, but really that's almost the date for the election is actually, what, the 6th or something? The 7th. So, and we had originally told them that they would have the access to the building on the 1st of April. So, and it's a real time crunch to get it done in the time frame that they have already. So, without pushing everything back and with the scheduling of events at the rec center and so forth, we wanted to try to stay with that schedule. So.
And then also, did we say that maybe the magic bus to individuals would be running?
We'll be promoting that as well.
Actually, I think that's something the board needs to discuss. I don't want, my concern there is that if somebody calls and they don't get picked up and it becomes a city's liability, that we didn't give them their access to get to the polling place. I just have some concern, the people who are going to vote are going to be able to get to the rec center, and we should be able to send enough notices so they know where to go. I don't see how that is any different than people coming up to vote at the rec center.
I just meant if they came to the rec center, if we wanted to shuttle, sometimes seniors, they're not familiar with where they're supposed to go. Just from there, I didn't mean going to individual homes to pick them up, but if that's a problem. I just wish we would have waited the week. If we find a drop in the attendance at this election or something, I think that people are always going to question this, and 1 week delay, to me, would have been the better option. I don't know if they've already printed or they've already made arrangements.
They've made
the election is commissioned, so yeah, they're the ones, right? So.
Well, I have a question. Will there be a sign like outside of the rec center in case anybody does show up?
Right.
Know
There'll be signage directing people where
so
to
that
go.
they don't have to get out of their cars.
Right.
Right. So, okay. One other item, a lot of the A-city municipalities are working together to really monitor our state legislators this season with respect to the distribution or redistribution of sales tax in St. Louis County. And a group has gotten together. They're hiring a lobbyist to monitor that for us. Our contribution, and I know BOA has the authority to do this, but I just wanted to make sure it's got board support. It would be $500 a month for us to join in and then get all those updates as they monitor that through this legislative season. So, unless there's some real objection, we're going to proceed with that so that we can keep up to date and work together with our other A cities on monitoring that. Alderman Leahy?
I don't think that that's a good idea for the city to get involved. A, hiring lobbyists, and B, we currently are a member of the municipal league, and we get that information as our membership to work with. I believe every member of this board is supposed to be receiving the municipal leagues. And from there, what we do with that information in order to keep abreast of what our senator and state reps are doing, type thing. I don't think it's worth the $2,500 for the city to spend to pay for a lobbyist.
Well, again, maybe lobbyist is the wrong word to use. He is a lobbyist, but the duties he will be doing is really tracking the bills. St. Louis County Municipal League doesn't have the staff to monitor every bill and things that get added onto. I know.
They give it out each week.
Right. Well, not all of them. And you're looking at it.
I'm looking at the last 2 weeks.
Right.
It's not the same level of detail.
Right. And so I think it's very worthwhile. Legislators slip things into bills at the last minute to get them through, and I just think it's something that we want to be consistent with our other A cities as we monitor this. But if the board doesn't want to do it, that's fine. But I would suggest that we move forward with it. Alderman Saunders.
How much other participation do we have from the other cities?
They will be paying an equal amount. There are a total of 6 A cities that are participating. Clayton, Baldwin, Maplewood, Frontenac, De Pere, and us. So there's a total of 6 cities that are participating. And these are the 6 cities that are considered the large A cities that are generating a substantial amount of revenue. We have a phone conference every Friday, so I have been participating with these other cities, waiting for the board to meet so a decision can be made. So they also talk to our lobbyist, talks to other lobbyists in Jeff City, and inform us of the different positions that other cities, for instance, like Chesterfield, or the B cities. The B cities, there are a total of 10 of them who've also hired their own lobbyist about 2 years ago. So I think in order for us to be adequately informed of what's going on in Jeff City, because the Municipal League interim executive director is not there on a weekly basis, but our lobbyist is
they're in
there.
transition right now, too,
Exactly.
anyway, so
that
it significantly impacts us.
Exactly.
I think it's a good, and actually, Municipal League, I guess you'll share some of the data with them too, because they're usually helpful to us.
The Municipal League is kind of in a little bit of a catch-22 because they represent both A and B cities, so.
They can't take a position.
Right. So, although the Municipal League did take a position on the distribution of sales tax a few years
Yes,
ago.
they did.
So, right.
And
well, through the
Yeah.
cities working on that position, so.
But that negotiated effort has yet to yield any legislation that allows, because St. Louis County ends up getting hurt the worst with this. They lose $5 million if they dissolve the AB city distribution. St. Louis County ends up, because they don't get the tax money, and they still don't have permission.
Oh, no, if they dissolve the AB system, St. Louis County actually gains, I think, $8 million because the unincorporated districts don't go into the pool anymore. Yes, no, it would be a big gain for St. Louis County.
St. Louis County also has a lobbyist in Jeff City.
Yes, they do. But the limit is
they would gain, I guarantee you. That right now, all of this unincorporated St. Louis County goes into the pool and it's distributed on their. That's one of the reasons they would like to have a change.
Do you need a motion?
I guarantee you.
Mayor, do you need a motion?
They say they're silent on it, but I guarantee you that's what they're doing. Yeah. So.
Mayor, do you need a motion?
No, we don't, unless there's a motion that people don't want.
If we don't need a motion.
I'm not in favor of the city doing this.
Okay, then we need a motion. Let's go ahead and take a vote. So
We haven't had a motion, have we?
can we have a motion to?
I'll make the
approve
motion, yeah.
$500?
If we need that,
Okay.
let's do it.
And second?
I'll second it, Your Honor.
And roll call.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
No.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman Kramer.
I just wanted to add that with what is at stake as an A city and what will continue to be at stake, I think it's a wise expenditure.
Great. Thank you. Public Safety Committee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say publicly to our police and fire that it's been very easy to be chairman of this committee because they do such good work, as we saw here tonight, that and they get all kinds of accolades, and it's a very good feeling. And I just want to compliment all the men and women that are in the fire and police departments for great work, and I know they're going to keep doing it after I'm gone.
Good. Thanks, Lee. Public Works Committee?
No report, Your Honor.
Director of Planning, anything further? Ways and Means Committee?
Yes, Your Honor, continuing with our recurring schedule, March the 10th, 6:30, we'll have our next meeting here in Chambers.
Okay. City Attorney?
No report, Your Honor.
City Clerk?
No report, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I do.
Okay.
There was, I'll walk around.
Oh.
She told me.
Last week, the Missouri Parks and Recreation Association Annual Conference held. their annual conference in Springfield, Missouri. And just a little background on what this organization is. They serve as the voice for Parks and Recreation in Missouri on the local, state, and national level. They are a nonprofit association whose members work to provide opportunities for all the state's citizens to enjoy quality leisure activities. They're dedicated to promoting public support for Parks and Recreation and public awareness of the contribution of recreation to a balanced life. At the meeting this year, they presented Mayor Kelly with the Public Official Achievement Award, and I'm happy to present this to you.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks Eric and the staff that were able to attend. I couldn't make it to Springfield last week to receive the award, but it's greatly appreciated, and you got a great Parks Department. Keep up the good work, so thank you. Let me see. Excise Commissioner, we have a temporary liquor permit for St. Mary Magdalene.
They're holding a trivia night on April 18th from 5 to 11. They intend to sell beer and wine.
Okay. We have a motion, please.
Motion to approve the request for a special use permit.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Library, anything further?
No.
Municipal League, nothing. Well, just a quick thing, because that came up. I don't know if everybody is aware that Tim Fischescher did retire from the St. Louis County Municipal League, so they're actually looking for a new director right now. So, Historical Society?
No.
Okay. We do have an executive session this evening for legal and personnel matter. Is there any unfinished business? Alderman Leahy?
I'd like to ask the board to respond to what do we plan to do with the compensation survey that we spent $30,000 with? And where does that stand? What are we going to do with that information now that we have it?
Well, I mean, that's something that, part of it, Ways and Means can take that up, we'll take it from there. So I think that's something that still needs a little bit of evaluation on how to proceed for some of the recommendations that they made. So,
if this board is serious at looking to institute some of the recommendations that were made by the Higgy Group, I'd like to make a motion, if I could, to the board for its consideration. Most of the suggestions that came out of that survey was that we would look at the compensation and benefits, probably freezing and letting other municipalities catch up with us, or adjusting our benefits to make them more of where the employees make compensation for them or contributions towards them. And if you're going to be messing with other people's pays and benefits, I think it's only right that the board and elected officials set the example by messing with our pay and compensations first. And in that manner, I would like to make the recommendation under the state statute for compensation for elected officials. You may change them prior to the election. So for the mayor and the judge and what would be the right-hand side of the room to work with, I would like to make a recommendation that the board look at reducing the pays. For the motion, I would make the motion that the mayor and the judge salary be dropped to $10,000 per year, that the Board of Aldermen salaries be dropped to $6,000 per year. For this side of the room, under state statute, we cannot change our pay, but we could agree to voluntarily return the differential so that both the left and the right-hand side would get the same pay for the year. And I would be willing to make that recommendation that the board seriously do it and set the example before we start getting into talking what we may or may not do with employees' pay.
is there a second?
Do we want to discuss this at Ways and Means and then bring it forward? We have adequate time.
Well, wait, he made a motion. Is there a second?
Your Honor, if I could interject, I
Second.
believe
What
the
is the
salary
second?
would have to be set by ordinance.
Right.
So we would have to bring an ordinance forward to the board.
Which gives us the time in our next meeting in March, because we would have to process this prior to the April 7th election to work with if it was to go into effect.
They actually would want to check and make sure it's not the filing for the election as well.
It says at the time of election.
You know,
I don't understand the motion exactly, Andy.
the
I'm
thing,
sorry, I
Mayor, is that some people have already started running for office with the salary in mind that they now,
Right, that's what I said.
they can live with it if it's reduced, but I don't think now is the time to do it, and it's such a rush, and there's going to be a lot of new people on this board in just a very short time. It would be better for them to examine it and see what they want to do going forward than to have this at the very end in a rush. Just wait till the new year starts for the new alderman, and then let them decide what they want.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Any other unfinished business? Any new business?
Oh, I have unfinished business.
Okay, go ahead.
We have had the sidewalks on the Ways and Means agenda since 2013. I hope we can get this rectified. To me, it's a legal decision. There's state statutes that govern it. The new code addresses where the homeowner is responsible, and then we can permit them if they don't rectify their problem in 30 days. I have residents asking me, well, if they're responsible, can they remove their sidewalks? It's gone round and round in circles. I know our policy has always been to take care of them. I think the city should take care of them. We're paying permanent easements in Hanley Industrial and Litzinger to put in sidewalks. But the problem is we need an answer. And to me, this is strictly a legal issue, and we should know exactly what to tell the residents, and are they allowed to dig up their sidewalks? I just need an answer. And it's illegal to me. It's not necessarily a policy decision.
Got a question. So do you want a legal answer that we enforce the code, or do you want to change the code?
I've always said we should just leave the sidewalks out of the code and just have a policy, and we'll maintain the sidewalks. But do you understand there's state statutes that guide this? I'm not an attorney that knows about sidewalks, but if somebody asks me, can they dig up their sidewalk, can they? I don't know.
Well, I doubt that they'd be able to dig up a sidewalk that's existing because they were put in under some type of site plan, or when the subdivisions were built, or those kinds of things. So I don't think the resident has the ability to eliminate a sidewalk in front of their own individual home. And I think that's what you would find if you looked in the code. I think to the other question, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with the policies and procedures that we've been doing, for a number of years. We repair them when they get damaged from, trees and acts of God and those kinds of things. I don't know that we've replaced them if somebody, drove a big truck or a moving truck over their own sidewalks and broke their sidewalks. Usually it's up to them then to fix it.
Well, then if we at least just go back to the old code, because the new code is even more restrictive.
Well, I thought it actually, I don't know why that would be at Ways and Means anyway. I thought it was actually done at Public Works, and that's what they did. Did you do something with it?
I think it started in Public Works, and then all of a sudden it moved to Ways and Means, and it's been at Ways and Means ever since.
Your Honor, if I could,
Okay.
just a point of clarity. I agree, it is a tiresome subject, and we do have our council coming to the next meeting on March the 10th. I hope that'll be the last time we have to talk about it.
Okay, all right.
And I guess we have somebody, though, like, Curtis Hines, I mean, they have multiple cities, they have to address sidewalks before, is that correct? Do we have?
We haven't approached Curtis Hines for this.
It just seems to me that there's got to be multiple cities that have dealt with this issue.
We've talked to the attorney that represents the Slate when there's a trip hazard and someone files a claim, and that attorney has indicated that his recommendation is we should leave it as it is.
Okay, but the new code.
There has been no change in the new code. We checked that.
Yes, sir, it's from chapter of the old code. Which code are we talking about? The one we adopted in November?
Yeah.
It is much different than what's in, you don't even reference the permitting in 30 days to, okay, let me show you.
In the new code, it goes on to say, every owner of any such premises fronting or abutting on any such sidewalk which shall be out of repair, failing, neglecting, or refusing to repair such sidewalk within 30 days after notice to repair the same given by the director of planning shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor. That is not in the old code.
Okay.
The only thing is, it just says the owner, well, it doesn't even say that much. It just says sidewalks where the damage is done due to growth belong to the city, sidewalks controlled by the county or the state. I mean, it doesn't go into that.
Your Honor, if
We checked with
Finding.
general code. There was no change to the code. So perhaps we can talk after the meeting and clarify that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. Any new business? Alderman Lake.
Ward 3 meeting for the month of March will be Tuesday night, the 31st, at 7 p.m. in the council chamber. All are invited. Thank you, Your Honor.
Great.
Well, can I just clarify one thing? Are you talking about no change since the November adoption with the code you gave us this weekend?
Prior to.
Okay, that I know there's a change. Okay. I didn't bring the old one this time.
And I mean, it may be a little bit of semantics in that now that it's giving the city some ability to enforce it, but the enforcement is still there, that it's a resident's responsibility that they need to fix it. So
It's only the protocol that's a little different.
Right. So anyway, if anybody would like to address the Board of Aldermen, please come forward and give us your name and address.
Denise Stebbing, and just to follow up on my original questions, I was hoping that maybe Bola, you could sometime this week maybe give me an update on the alternatives that you're looking at for the tar removal and how quickly we might see some relief in getting that repaired, because it's already been since before Thanksgiving and it's not getting any better. And then maybe if you could work with the board on those boards at Manchester, and I don't know, maybe it's planning and zoning, to see if there's something we can do to kind of get it off being stuck doing nothing. Because, I mean, I know at one point we were told that they might do some improvements to the boards and things like that, and nothing's been done. And it actually, with the weather, the draping that was on it is starting to rip off. And so if we could at least get an update on some improvements, and maybe they can even just put plants there or something to kind of help beautify it a little bit. And then maybe Chief Fitzgerald, if maybe I could talk to you a little bit about if we might see some citations on the trash trucks sometimes. I can tell you that the pickups behind our house are Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings, and it's usually between 5 and before 7 that if they're going to break the thing. I don't know if that helps you and your staff. Okay, thank you. And then, Andy, I really would, for the sake of transparency, appreciate an answer. I know, I've asked it over and over, and I just think it's a very simple question of why you don't want people to send emails to the city. So I just appreciate a simple answer.
That answer was provided to you and your husband on the 3rd of October in writing, per your husband's request.
And I don't remember what that answer was, Andy. I don't recall that. Why you don't want
Because
people to
I do not have access to the city email account through my main computer because of the job I do and the filters that are on it that block the city account. Thus, I put you to my account so that you can still communicate with me.
You don't have a personal computer? Is that what you're saying?
I do not have access to the city account through my main computer.
Can talk about that later.
And that's been given to you since the 3rd of October.
And that's what I was just trying to understand why you were saying that. And that's all I wanted. That's all I've been asking for, is a specific answer. Thank you.
All right. We have a motion we're going into a motion to go into executive session, please.
For a legal.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Karen Smith on Harrison. So back to the sidewalks. The question that I have is who puts it in should be maintaining it. When My sidewalks were replaced by the city at one point because we did have some crumbling sidewalks. They did the whole street, so like in front of my house, it was not crumbling, but they did do the whole street. And sort of the rationale that was given was that it would put some uniformity there. And I'm not against that. I think our sidewalks did look very nice. I wasn't against that at all. But I think it goes, it differs somewhat from what I hear people say what we do. So there's some unclarity there for me. And also when the water company replaced our water main down the center of our water main that feeds our houses is underneath our sidewalk. And so when they replaced that, they had to tear up the sidewalks and they put them back in. And I do not feel that the same quality of sidewalk was put in. And I'm not a concrete expert, but I don't know that they put the level of gravel down. And then the expansion joints, they don't have expansion joints in there the way that they were in there before. My concrete person that was doing some work at my house said it's kind of a poor man's version of an expansion joint. So the quality is questionable that they put in. And when I called them on that, they said that that's the city responsibility. That is not my responsibility, just like the curbs are. Curbs were marred in the work, and the sidewalk quality does not look as good, and they told me that I have no jurisdiction over that is a city responsibility. So I don't know that the views that the city holds is necessarily uniform. Thank you.
Okay. Now, to have a motion to go into executive session for legal and personnel matter.
So moved.
And second. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Lee and...
I was Patrick.
Patrick.
Seconded.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robinson?
Yes. Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Okay. Well, are we going upstairs?
Upstairs.
Okay. We'll be meeting upstairs as quickly as possible.
Yep.